To me, Thanksgiving is all about the side dishes. Yeah, of course, you've got the turkey or the ham or whatever your main dish is, but it's all those side dishes that get put on the table that everybody's digging into and enjoying. A lot of times, different family members bring different dishes. And what I'm gonna make today is one of the stuffings that we bring to our family Thanksgiving that everyone just loves. It's an apple walnut stuffing. Now, before we go any further, stuffing, dressing. Stuffing is generally in the bird, dressing is you bake in the oven. Guess what? I call it all stuffing. This is gonna be made in the oven. If you have a problem with me saying stuffing, just in your head, substitute dressing. Now, you could use a boxed stuffing if you don't want to start from scratch with bread, but I like starting from scratch with bread. And what I have here are 2 loaves of French bread. What I did was I cut this up, put it in the oven for 1 hour at 200 degrees on just some baking trays. Then I let it sit out overnight on the same trays, just on top of the stove, just sitting there and air drying more. And you can see, we've got nice dry bread. And one of the reasons that you do this is because you want this to absorb all the flavors we're gonna add into this. We're gonna be using some chicken stock today, but you could use vegetable stock or turkey stock. We're also gonna be adding a flavor base that we're gonna make at the stove, because that is really where all the great taste for this comes from. So let's head over to the stove and get started. Now in my pan, I have a 1.5 sticks of unsalted butter that we're just gonna start melting. So we're gonna go over sort of a medium-low flame here. We're just melting this down because this is where all our ingredients are gonna go into this, and this is gonna be poured on top of that bread mixture. And here, if you need to add more butter, you can, but I find a 1.5 sticks usually works well. You may think, man, that's a lot of butter, but this is gonna be going with 2 loaves of dried French bread. And we're gonna be putting some great ingredients in here in just a second. Remember, we want this on medium-low. We're not trying to brown the butter. First up in our ingredients are 2 Granny Smith apples with the skin on that I've chopped up. Now you can take the skin off if you want. I like the skin on. This is the apple part of our apple walnut stuffing. And we just want these to soften a bit in here. These are also gonna release some of their juices, which is gonna help get our stuffing nice and moist. I'm also gonna add 1 large shallot that's been chopped up pretty good. Stir that in. Again, we're not necessarily trying to brown anything here. We're just trying to soften things and get the flavor out of them. Get that flavor into the butter mixture. We're gonna add a teaspoon of kosher salt, a teaspoon of coarsely ground black pepper, a teaspoon of granulated garlic, a 1/2 teaspoon of rosemary, dried rosemary that's been ground up in my mortar and pestle, a tablespoon of dried sage, tablespoon of dried thyme. Let's get all this mixed in here, get these herbs and spices mixed in. It's already starting to smell like Thanksgiving right here at the stove. I'm also gonna add 3 celery ribs, which have been chopped up pretty good here. I've basically split the celery ribs and then chopped them up. Final ingredient, a cup of broken walnut pieces. No, this is not a low-cal dish, but everything in moderation. It's all about balance. Have a salad at Thanksgiving too. All right, I'm gonna let this go for another 2 or 3 minutes to soften up. Then we're gonna go back over to the bowl, add this to our bread mixture so that we can get our stuffing into a baking dish and bake it. So we're gonna go ahead and pour our seasoning and ingredient mixture over the bread here. We're just gonna work slowly here. We wanna distribute this a bit. A big bowl does help here. I wish I even had a bigger bowl. This is just the beginning of the moistening process of this to get some of that flavor in there. But it's really our chicken stock that is gonna add most of the moisture here. Oop, no escapees today. Now I'm just gonna get in here with my hands for a minute and really try and distribute that mixture in here. I want to get some of that on every piece of bread. Once we get the other liquid in here, it'll help spread those flavors out, but I want to get as much distributed right now as I can. Let's just take a quick little taste. That is that Thanksgiving flavor. All right, now it's time for some chicken stock. And I've got a 32-ounce container right here. I have plenty more if I need it, but we really shouldn't need all of this, but you never know. I'm gonna start with about maybe a quarter to a half of it. Just get it in here so we can start working it in. Again, hands work really well here because now is when you want to start, I don't want to say squishing the bread, but you want to start massaging it to start feeling how moist it's getting. That'll tell you how much more liquid you need to add. Now, let's say you do the opposite and you add too much liquid. Have some bread on standby, even if it's not totally dried or anything like this, just some white bread, some French bread, some wheat bread, anything. Just break it up and add it to here to soak up some of that moisture. But we want to get down to the bottom, get all of that moisture distributed. Because it will go down to the bottom, it'll sort of pool there, and you got to get the bread moving around so it can soak it up. Now, is this more work than just a box of stuffing? Yeah, but it tastes fantastic, and there is something wonderful about making a side dish for Thanksgiving from scratch. I mean, I didn't bake the bread, I could have, but this just turns out amazing. And you can also add other flavors here if you want. Some people like to add bacon to this. You can add anything. It's this apple walnut base, which is great. And I think it tastes good just on its own. I mean, I also like a good sausage stuffing or bacon stuffing or anything really, but this is really good. So this is gonna need more stock, but what I wanna do now is I wanna cover this with a towel and let it sit for about 15 to 20 minutes just to absorb the liquid that's there. Then we'll come back, see how it feels, and start adding more of our chicken stock to get it to the right consistency. So I'll see you back here in about 15 or 20 minutes. All right, our stuffing has been resting here for about 20 minutes to help absorb a little bit of that first batch of liquid. And I want to mention that right now, you should be preheating your oven to 400 degrees. So let's get the towels off and check it out and add some more liquid. See, now if you start feeling this here, you're gonna feel that it's a lot softer than it was just 20 minutes ago. That liquid has started to absorb into the bread. And if you kind of do a little squish, you'll feel it, but it needs more. So I'm gonna go ahead and add maybe another, I don't know, quarter of this and mix it up here. Now also, some people like to add an egg or two to their stuffing or their dressing. I don't generally do that unless I'm gonna be baking it to come out a certain shape. Let's say you're gonna be baking this in a pie mold, which I've done before, and you wanna like cut slices of it. That egg will help bind it together and hold it together as you're cutting slices. But this is just gonna be a traditional Thanksgiving stuffing that you're gonna scoop out onto the plate, maybe put a little gravy on. A little more chicken stock here. Again, this is all about the feel of it. And at this point, you do want to kind of start squishing it a little, pushing down and feeling how much it's absorbing. Is it still hard? You will have a few spots that might be a little bit firm, and that's like there's the crust on the bread here, but the rest of it should be getting pretty soft about now. And you can see the size of this, how it's condensed with that liquid in here, soaking into our bread pieces, and they're starting to lose that dry shape and sort of mush together. All right, that is feeling really good to me. Let's go ahead and get our baking dish out here and get this in there. So I have my baking dish here. This is roughly an 11 by 13, but really just have a couple baking dishes ready, maybe a large one and a small one, so that if you have a little extra, make a smaller batch to go with it. Now what I want to do is take some butter here and just grease the inside of this lightly. Then I'm just going to start getting our stuffing in here. How many of you are angry that I'm saying stuffing instead of dressing? It's all going to taste great, whatever you call it. I just want to work this into all the corners. And I do want to press it down a little bit. I want it to be slightly compacted here. And we are going to cover this with foil and it's gonna bake for 25 minutes with the foil on, and then we're gonna take the foil off, and it's gonna go for probably another 20 to 25 minutes uncovered, just to get a little color on the top. That's always nice. Now before we get our foil on, what I wanna do is take some of that butter, which is about half a stick that we were using to grease this pan, and I wanna take slices of it, lay it on the top. So this is gonna go in the oven now, and in 25 minutes, I'll take the foil off. And then after that, 20 more minutes or so, we'll see how the top looks. And then I'll bring it out here so we can have a look at it and have a taste. Well, here is our apple walnut stuffing. I put it under the broiler right at the end for just about 45 seconds so you can see a couple little brown spots there. Just wanted to get a nice color on top. And you can do that too if you're not getting that exact color you want. But this looks terrific to me. I'm gonna let this cool for about 5 minutes. Then I'm gonna plate up a piece, maybe put a little gravy on it or on the side so we can have a taste. So here is a plate of our apple walnut stuffing. I did put a little bit of gravy on here, but what I also did, if you notice, there's a couple walnuts on here, and these are some rosemary walnuts, if you can see that. I just found these in my local Sprouts market, and a lot of times you can find different flavored walnuts, things like that, even candied walnuts, that are great to top a dish like this because they bring just a little bit of extra flavor. Yeah, I even think some of those sweet candied walnuts on this would have been good, but I found these rosemary walnuts and they go really with that Thanksgiving flavor profile. So let's dive in and have a taste. Got some first, mostly without gravy. Let's see. The first thing I get is that apple flavor in here. I love that. It really is just fall to me. And you get the crunch from those walnuts, really nice. And now for a little bit with some gravy. Now it doesn't need the gravy. It is really flavorful, really moist. But come on, gravy at Thanksgiving, you gotta put it on everything, even pumpkin pie. No, not on pumpkin pie. Do not tell anyone that I said put gravy on pumpkin pie, but for stuffing, it does work.